afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another Doc Talk session proudly sponsored by Bahama Health. To get this session started, we have a few trivia questions for our listening audience. So let us begin, and you may type your responses in the chat for us to recognize you. So according to the author Gary Chapman, how many love languages are there? Please type your answers in the chat. Way to go, Jerome Johnson. 5. There are 5 love languages. So can I have anyone who's willing to list all 5 of them? Drop them in the chat, or we can have persons who list 2 or more. Please go ahead. Anyone in the chat? Anyone is making that attempt on listing the 5? Wow. We don't have anyone with the love languages who knows them? All right, okay, so far we have something coming in. Yes, way to go, Dashanae Butler. Affirmations. Acts of service, yes. Another one. Anyone else want to just jump right on in and list the other 5? All right, physical touch. For you guys who are touchy-feely, way to go. Come on, Dash, I guess you can add another one if you know it. Drop it in there. We've just, quality time. We love to have people spend time with us. And there's one last one. And we've just gone through Valentine's where, that's right. Deja Brown, receiving gifts. Exactly. For some of you who got all those lovely flowers and all that wonderful stuff. So thank you guys for listing the 5 love languages. I have one other trivia for you, and this is about our speaker. So our speaker tonight has co-founded a club with her husband, Pastor Marvin. Can anyone tell me the name of that club? I will give you a little hint. You know, when you lay in the bed at night, you and your husband, I don't know where you put your head, but that's sort of an idea to give you what that club is about, or the name of the club. Jasmine knows. Way to go. Yes, it is Pillow Talk Marriage Club. Thank you very much, Jasmine. And the next one, and our speaker is quite busy. She also hosts a show. Tonight's speaker hosts a show that she's launched. Can you tell me the name of that show? She hosts this show, and it's on a particular night. And it helps you can see right through everything. Come on, for the win. This is the last one for the win. Come on now. I know somebody has the answer. And her slides have been running across the screen all evening, so I'm certain if we were reading, we might have caught that one too as well. Well, it seems like nobody got this one, so I will give it to you. Transparent Tuesdays, and this was launched in 2021. Great. And now I will turn the meeting over to our host. Thank you very much for participating in the trivia. And now we will move into the meeting. Thank you,
Thank you
everybody.
so much, Mr. Rob. Thank you for that fun session of trivia. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I am Nurse Monroe, Clinical Nurse Reviewer here at Bahama Health, and we are very excited to have you all join us this evening as we have a great session planned with a dynamic speaker. We encourage you all to place all your questions in the chat after her presentation. Okay, we will now begin our session with Mrs. Deja McKenzie, who will provide the official welcome.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome you all. Matters of the heart are one of the most important things in our lives. This brings us joy, laughter, sorrow, tears. They can fill our souls and break our spirits. They connect us to each other and, more importantly, to God. They are an accumulation of experiences that move us deeply and make us who we uniquely are. On behalf of our Vice President, Ms. Charlene Rogers, the members of the Doc Talk Committee, and our entire team here at Bahama Health, we are thrilled to welcome you to our Doc Talk session for this month of love. Tonight's session is geared towards discussing all things related to the matters of the heart and ways in which we can foster healing, nurturing, and self-cultivating healthy relationships. So we encourage you to sit back, relax, and open your hearts to the enriching discussion about mending hearts. Don't forget our question and answers at the end.
Thank you so much, Deja. Okay, next up, we will have Ms. Rani Smiller, who will introduce our guest speaker for this evening.
Good afternoon. Sorry, I was not able to unmute. Okay. Dr. Tamalia Gibson hails from the beautiful Nassau, Bahamas, and she is married to Pastor Marvin Gibson. She is a clinical psychologist, relationship coach, author, motivational speaker, ordained minister, host of the show Transparent Tuesdays, and an entrepreneur. Dr. Tamalia and her husband, Pastor Marvin, are the co-founders of the Pillow Talk Marriage Club, an online community dedicated to nurturing healthy marriages. As the daughter of Bishop Walter Hanchel and Elder Minnalee Hanchel, from birth, she was infused with Christian values and principles that guide her life. It is these same principles that she penned in her first book, Serena's Secret, Confessions of a Single Lady, which was recognized as one of the top 3 books on Christian living in 2014 by Zulin Press. In her second book, The Power of Peace, she shares principles that will ensure that you can have peace despite life's challenges. Regarding her formal education, she attended St. Augustine's College, then matriculated to Messiah College, where she obtained her bachelor's degree in psychology. Dr. Gibson earned her master's and doctorate degrees in clinical psychology from Argosy University, Tampa. She is the recipient of various accolades, including Outstanding New Professional Award at the University of Central Florida, the National Scholarship Award in the Bahamas, the Outstanding Senior Psychology Student Award at Messiah College, and being listed in Who's Who among college students in America. Some of her civic involvement has included volunteering at Great Commission Ministries International, Operation Explosion, the Special Olympics, and Road to Recovery. She was also a committee member of the Miss Gospel Bahamas pageant. Dr. Gibson enjoys spending time with her son, Nathan Marvin Gibson, traveling, listening to music, and laughter, which she strongly believes is good medicine for the soul. She aspires to inspire and feels great joy in encouraging and in uplifting others. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Tamalia Gibson.
Good evening, everyone. It's so good to be here with you this evening. It's truly a pleasure, and I believe that we're going to have a good time tonight. Is that all right? We're talking about relationships. Relationships are intricate, they're exciting, and I think that we're going to have a good time. Now, listen, I want us to really interact with each other, okay? Is that all right? So that means don't leave me out here by myself. Please go in that chat and interact with me. If you have comments, put your comments. If anything stands out, you can type that in the chat and let's learn and grow together. And I really want to applaud Bahama Health for doing this session because I really think that relationships are so important. We all have relationships. And I know sometimes when we hear relationship, we're thinking about romantic relationships. But really tonight, we're going to be talking about it all. What we're going to talk about will cover every type of relationship that you have in your life, whether it's family, friends, romantic relationship, your co-workers, the people at church, all of that good stuff, okay? So make sure, like they said earlier, write down your questions and then I will answer them later after the presentation for you. But please make sure you comment. All right. Sorry, I'm having my screen froze up a bit on me just now. All right, so looking at our outline for tonight, we're going to be talking about why relationships are important, self-care, the 4 C's for successful relationships, conflict resolution, and healing from a broken heart. Now listen, any one of these, I could go on for a long time, but we've got a short time together, so we're just going to give quick nuggets and move through as fast as possible, okay? So in the chat, how about you tell me why you think relationships are important? Why do you think relationships are important? So you could type whatever you feel like in the chat. Do you think relationships are important? Why are they important? And I'm going to, whilst you type that, I'm going to give you some things really quickly about why relationships are important. So the first thing is that we've done a lot of research on relationships as psychologists, and studies have shown that people who have really good relationships, they actually tend to live longer. Not only that, they tend to deal better with stress, and even their immune system is better when you have a really good, strong support system. Additionally, people who have poor social support, they tend to be more likely to be depressed. And of course, we've seen this in our community lately, where there's been a rise of people talking more about depression, and there's been more of an outcry for people to gather around people who are depressed. And the truth of the matter is, we all need someone to gather around us. Like, no man is an island. So social support is also important for maintaining physical and psychological health. I want you to take a moment right now and think about the lowest time in your life. It could be where you experienced the loss of a loved one, a health issue, a financial crisis, whatever it is for you. I can think personally for me, sharing a bit more about myself, is when I went through 3 miscarriages after being married. For 1 year, 3 miscarriages in 1 year, my first year of marriage, and that was a very trying time. And so what really helped me to get through that time, one of the things that helped me was having a strong support system. And so it's so important that we have people that we can lean on and that can help us during these challenging times. How you view yourself and your self-awareness impacts your relationship. So what am I saying? I'm basically saying that in order to have healthy relationships, we also have to have a healthy view of how we view ourselves. And we also need to work on self-growth, because if I don't work on myself and I'm in a relationship with someone else, sometimes I can maybe be toxic in that relationship, or I can be hurtful, or I can withdraw unhealthily from a good relationship. So it's so important that we are aware of ourselves. And let me give you an example of that. Perhaps you can relate to this. Maybe you've dated someone in the past who's had low self-esteem, right? And let's say you're telling them all these good stuff about them, like how you appreciate them and, you know, how you're so attracted to them and all these great things. But it's hard for them to receive that because they don't view themselves that way. And so they may actually push you away or reject you or end the relationship because they're like, well, how could he or she look at me this way and I don't even look at myself this way? And so this is why it's so important that we have a healthy view of self. Everyone type that, healthy view of self, healthy view of self. And so in the chat, I want to ask you, if you could use just one word to describe yourself, what would that one word be? You could just pick one word to describe yourself. What would that one word be? I see some enthusiasm, very good, and determined. I like these descriptions, very positive. I like it. I like it. So you can continue to type how you view yourself. How do you view yourself? Because that's very important. Tenacious. Oh, I love that, Tanya. Tenacious. Awesome, joyful, beautiful inside and out. These are all very positive descriptions. And I hope that we can really, really view ourselves this way, even if we're having a hard day, to keep this positive view of ourselves. That's wonderful. Self-growth is important, like I said, to have a healthy relationship. And we have to be aware of our strengths and our areas of growth, as well as our triggers. So when I say triggers, what do I mean? You ever been in a situation where maybe you're talking to a friend and they say something and all of a sudden, like, that raises up your anxiety, you feel very, very frustrated, very upset. And if you really go to the depth of things, it's not necessarily that person, but it's the situation that was very triggering or upsetting for you because of something you went through in the past. And that's why it's so important that we're aware of our triggers, because it impacts our relationships, right? Like if we're triggered by something continuously and we have a reaction to that, then we need to be aware of that. And that's something that we would have to grow through, okay? Also, to think positively of yourself, which we all did in the chat just now. Very good. Thinking positively of yourself. Setting appropriate boundaries is also very healthy and normal. I want everyone to type this powerful 2-letter word in the chat. We have a hard time sometimes saying it, but it's very healthy and normal. And that word is no. Everyone type no in the chat, no. And I think sometimes we take on so much. We want to say yes to everybody, to every opportunity. We want to say yes to the person who need a ride home. We want to say yes to the person at church that want us to be on a committee. And we just end up overwhelming ourselves, and we're no good to ourselves or to anyone else. Someone say, this is so true. Fix it, Jesus. Yes, Jerome, fix it, Jesus. That's something that a lot of us need help in that area. Another thing we need to do is to apologize when we're wrong, or even if we don't think we're wrong, to apologize because we've offended or hurt someone. And that, I think, is a big example. That's an evidence that you are growing in your maturity as yourself, okay? And self-care. Listen, I could talk for a long time just on self-care, but I won't do that. Y'all don't have to worry. Self-care is so crucial. So everyone, I want you to type in the chat, what do you do for self-care? What do you do for self-care? And you may say, well, what does this have to do with relationships? It has everything to do with relationships, because a lot of times we find ourselves caregiving or taking care of other people, but we don't take care of ourselves. We neglect ourselves. And so we end up feeling very depleted, overwhelmed, burnt out, because we don't do anything for ourselves. And so I see people are giving examples, journaling and traveling, taking myself out. That's really good. Spa day. Listen, you need to take me with you, Tanya, when you go on a spa day. That sounds really good. Exercising actually releases endorphins. So it makes us feel really good when we exercise. I see someone said that I do nothing honestly, and I'm so glad that you're honest. And this is why forums like this is so important, because we can learn these strategies to help us. Walking the beach barefoot, I love it. And so therapy is also another big way that you can engage in self-care. And that's something that you could hit me up for, because I do sessions where I help people to take care of themselves, to learn themselves better, deal with stressful situations. You can also seek support from your clergy. Someone mentioned journaling earlier. That's a really good one. Prayer and meditation, taking slow and deep breaths. Listen, this is something that's so good. It's good like Xanax, to tell you the truth. Wherever you are, you may feel overwhelmed, you may feel stressed out. If you just pause and do this right now, just take a deep breath in. Do it right now. I'm watching you. Take a deep breath in, hold it, and let it out. Let that air out. I'm telling you, in any situation, if you do that, that will help you to relax. I like hot baths. I like bubble baths. I like to light my candle and smell that nice sweet aroma. Those are things that help me as well for self-care. Also practicing gratitude. You may say, well, what does that have to do with anything? There's research to show that people who practice gratitude actually feel better about themselves and are more resilient. Someone said they sing, relax, and listen to music. Awesome. So now let's talk about our relationship with other people. We talked about our relationship with ourselves. What is important to you in a relationship? Put it in the chat. What's important to you? What are the things that you like? I absolutely need this in a relationship. And that could be in a romantic relationship, in a family relationship, a friendship, whatever the case is. Communication, honesty, trust. These are really good ones, guys. Really, really good ones. What else do you need? Time, attention, affection, respect, honesty, and communication. Honesty keeps coming up. Communications keep coming back up. Time, awesome. These are all things that we need. These are important things in a relationship. Respect. Y'all, if I could sing, I would sing R-E-S-P-E-C-T, but I ain't gonna do it because I can't sing. But these are all very important things that we need in a relationship. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go through 4 C's. Now, this is not an exhaustive list. This is just a few of the things that we need in a relationship. And we mentioned some of these already. And the first C is communication. Everyone type communication. You ever been in a relationship with someone and they don't talk? You're like, you don't communicate with me. I need more than this. They don't reach out. They don't share what's on their thoughts. It's just like a block. Or even if you try to communicate, it's like they're not understanding what you're saying. Communication is so essential for a relationship. Okay, and let's talk about this, because we always say communication is important, but how many times do we learn how to communicate, right? That's very important. And these are some active listening techniques. This is what it means when we say communicate using active listening techniques. Being fully present in the conversation. You ever try to talk to someone about something very important and they're scrolling through their phone, or they're watching TV, watching sports, or watching a TV show? How do you feel when they do that? You feel probably ignored, you feel frustrated, because you want people to be fully present in the conversation. Yes, Dawn said it's annoying, absolutely. And good eye contact is a way that we show that we're fully present. So looking the person in their eye, you doing nonverbal cues to show that you're listening, like, nodding your head, leaning forward, showing them that you're interested in what they have to say. And this is a big one, y'all, Lord, this is a big one. Listen to understand, not just to respond. What does that mean? You ever in a I want to say a heated debate with someone, and you really ain't hearing nothing they're saying. It's like going in this ear, coming out the next, because you're thinking about what you're going to say to rebut whatever they said. And so that's not active listening. That's not good communication skills. We have to listen and hear their heart. Asking open-ended questions is helpful for listening, and then paraphrasing and reflecting what they said. So let's say it's a mother-daughter situation where they're having a disagreement. They're not seeing eye to eye on something. And let's say the daughter says, I feel like you try to control my life. Everything, you try to control me. And let's say the mother, using her active listening skills, can say, okay, so what I'm hearing is that you're saying that you feel like I am trying to control and take over your life. Okay, so it's just basically repeating what you heard, put it in your own words, and checking to make sure that you got it right. Because a lot of times what we hear is not what the person is saying. And I know married couples can attest to that. You could be saying one thing and your spouse heard something completely different. And we have to also avoid judging or criticizing. And what's a way that we do that? You always or you never, those definites, they already put people's wall up. And so now they don't even want to communicate with you, okay? So we want to make sure that we work on those things. We're going to work on those things, right? Now, we're in a situation now where a lot of people do not know how to resolve conflict. We're seeing it every day on the streets of Nassau. We're seeing it where people choose to instead resort to violence instead of sitting down and talking through things out. And so conflict is natural. We're going to have disagreements, right? No two people are exactly alike. Even if you have identical twins, they have different personalities, right? And so when you have differences, you're going to have disagreements, and that's okay. It's just a matter of how do we deal with those disagreements. And so it's important that we come to a common ground so that everyone can feel satisfied. Now, let me say this. I want everyone to type this. I won't have my way all the time. I won't have my way all the time. And that's major. In relationships, you won't get your way all the time. There's something called, another C word, is compromise, that you will have to compromise in a relationship. You won't always get your way, but you work together and create a compromise. And so let's say there are two parents, right? And they're trying to decide which school should we send our child to. Trying to decide where to send your child to. They want to send, one wants to send the QC and one wants to send the SAC, okay? What they do agree on, thinking about what they agree on, they both agree that they want to send their child to a private school and they want to send their child to a school out east. So go back to what you agree on and then start from there with resolving your conflicts, okay? And then you brainstorm different ideas and different suggestions together so that you can come up to a compromise. Everyone type that, compromise, compromise. That is so important. And it's also important for us to take responsibility. You know, sometimes we're just comfortable blaming, oh, it's their fault. It's all their fault. They don't know how to do this. But really, we have to take a look inward and see, what am I bringing to this table? What responsibility do I have in this conflict, in this issue? And what can I do for us to help us move past this, okay? Now, there are times, honestly, guys, where you could try all you can, and it seems like you're not getting anywhere. And in those times, I would highly recommend you getting a third party who is neutral to the situation. It could be a clergy, it could be a therapist like myself. I would be happy to help both parties reconcile and work through their issues, okay? And so that's important as well. So y'all keep on typing what stands out to you. We're gonna move to the next C that's important in relationships, is compliments. Now, I want everyone to tell me this. Did you give a compliment today? Think back on your day and type in the chat something that you complimented someone on today. Type something, it could be something big or it could be something small. You like, you know, whatever. Did you give I love Empress. Empress, you just so honest. She said, no, I didn't. I appreciate that honesty. Anyone else? Did you give a compliment today? Oh, Miss Butler said, I complimented you on your dress today. Thank you so much. That's very sweet. You're so kind. Yes, and guess what? When we give compliments, it feels good to give it, but it also feels good when you're on the receiving end. So this is something that is so good in relationships because it helps people to feel appreciated. It helps us to feel seen. Have you ever been in a romantic relationship, right? Where you're dating this person or you're married to this person and all they say to you is negative stuff. They nagging you about what you didn't do and you're not doing this right. And, you don't get that positive feedback. And that doesn't make you feel very secure. It doesn't make you feel very good in a relationship. So compliments are very, very important. So let's move to our next point. Commitment. I hope y'all remembering these C's. I might give y'all a pop quiz on these C's. Commitment. So commitment is very important. It's that just because we have issue, all relationships have some type of issue. When there is an issue, you don't just pick up your Geordie bundle and run away. You're like, I ain't taking this. My mind raised no fool. Take a deep breath, calm down, and learn to work through the issues, realizing that commitment means that even if I disagree with you, we can work through this issue, okay? And so I think commitment is very important in relationships. Now I'm watching my time and I'm gonna give just a few of these bonding activities. By bonding activities, what do I mean? Basically, I mean things that you can do to help make your relationship feel closer, feel stronger. Now, everyone to look at this list and type some of the things that you do with people that you have relationships with. It could be a friend, a coworker, it could be a romantic partner, a spouse, someone you're dating or engaged to, whatever. Think about what you do to bond with them and type that. So I can remember growing up, I grew up in a house where we had game night every Tuesday night. I could still remember every Tuesday night, my family would have game night and they would allow us to choose where we wanted to go. Or if we stayed at home, we played games together. And that really helped to create a stronger bond with us. And so that's something I would encourage people to do in your homes. Do a family game night. It really helps you to stay connected and spend time because this sometimes is our biggest problem. I don't know if you could see it, but it's my cell phone. We're so focused on social media that we neglect to spend time with each other. Dance and singing together, good. I see someone said praying together, absolutely. That's something that helps my husband and I very much. Even when we get into those heated moments of debates, being able to pause and pray has helped us so much. Going on a leisurely drive, watching a show or sports together. A couple of people mentioned watching sports together, really good. Attending conferences together, I love it. These are things that can help us have stronger relationships. All right, y'all, listen, I'm gonna give y'all this nugget from my first book that I wrote. It's called Serena's Secrets, Confessions of a Single Lady. And it's not your typical single book because I talk about a lot of different things in that. Dashane said, eating, LOL. I love to eat too. All right, so these are the types of people that you have to watch out for. Okay, so we talked about, things to help us have healthy relationships, but we cannot be ignorant of the fact that there are some relationships that are unhealthy. Okay, and so thank you, Miss Jenny. So good to have you on. Thank you. And we'll be watching you tomorrow on Spence Finlayson show. All right, so the takers. The takers are the people. Now, let me give you an example. This is the person when you go out to lunch at Fish Fry. Anytime you all go out, you always the one to foot the bill. I mean, when the bill reach, they're just like acting like they don't see it. They're not trying to pay anything. They're not trying to help in any way. If they need you, they're blowing up your phone, always need advice, drama, just taking from you. But when you're in a situation and you need some support and you try to reach out to them, they ignore you. That's a taker, okay? A breaker is someone who, and y'all pardon my voice, I've been under the weather. A breaker is someone who they try to destroy every good thing in your life. Let's say you start a relationship with someone and you're dating them and you're all in love, and they would come to you and say, well, child, all man is cheap. Or they say something like, oh, all these girls want is your money. They say negative things, or they do things to try to destroy any good momentum you have going in your life. And I know as I'm saying these things, y'all are thinking about some people. Y'all don't type their name in the chat now. There's one thing I don't want y'all to type in the chat, but I do want you to think about these people in your life. Now, the third one, the type of person to look out for are the fakers. Now, this one is a little tricky because at first glance, they look like they have your best interest at heart. They look like they are on your team and rooting for you, but secretly they are not. And this is where you really have to use discernment. And for me, I pray and I ask God to show me and reveal people's heart to me. And so the fakers are people, y'all ever heard the song, The Backstabbers? They smile in your face all the time. They want to take your place, the backstabbers. These are the people that you have to look out for. The takers, everyone type takers. Breakers, everyone type that. Everyone type fakers. And think about who that might be in your life. All right, we're coming closer to the end of our time. I just want to review red flags in relationships because it's so important, right? It's so important that we are aware of things that are toxic, some toxic traits. And one of them I would say is if no one likes them. Now, when I say no one likes them, I mean other people that everyone is like, there's something about that person. May not be able to put my hand on it, but there's something off about them. Even the person who is always so open to everybody, and they're like having this red flag about them. That's a sign, okay? Also, if someone who they only want you, they want to be the only person in your life. That's definitely a red flag. They want you to cut off from all your friends, cut off from all of your family. They want to control your time. This is a big red flag in a relationship. If they are abusive in any way, sexually, physically, emotionally, financially, huge red flag. Someone who lies, someone who cannot admit their fault, someone who's always giving and never receiving in the relationship. So you're always giving and never receiving in the relationship. That's like the taker situation, right? Also, someone who is disrespectful to you or to other people. So when I was dating my now husband, I made sure that I observed how would he treat how would he treat the waiter or the waitress? How would he treat the stranger, someone who may be asking him for money on the side of the street? How would he treat that person? It's so important that we are aware of disrespect in a relationship because that's a huge red flag. Now, y'all type for me any red flags that you've seen in people that you know. You don't have to name them. Please don't name them, but just type any red flags that you have noticed in people that you've known. All right, whilst you do that, inconsistent. Oh, that's a big one. Inconsistency, control. Hi, Miss Curtis, good to have you on. And I saw Pastor Allen, my pastor is on. Good to have you on. Okay, Nakia said lying, or Nakia said lying. That's a big one. Manipulative. Oh my goodness, y'all hitting all. These are some major red flags. And sometimes, like I heard someone said something like this, when they saw the red flag in a relationship, they got an outfit to match it. That means they didn't run from it. They just accommodated that red flag. It's important that you don't accommodate that, okay? Healing tips. First step is to acknowledge that you are hurt. We cannot heal from what we do not acknowledge. Also, forgiving who hurt you. Now, I could talk forever on that one, but I'll say this. Forgiveness frees you from being captive to that person. It's not condoning what they did, but it's freeing you to move on with your life. 3, practicing gratitude helps us to heal as well. Going for therapy. And like I said, I am willing and open to meet you guys to help you. If you're interested in therapy, we can definitely connect. Also learning to let it go. You know, this Frozen cartoon, they sing Let It Go. I too hoarse to even try, but let it go. You've got to let go of some things, okay? Laughing often. Laughter is good medicine. Just last week, I had an event called A Night of Love and Laughter, and we had a great time just laughing and enjoying ourselves. Also, reaching out to others for support. Those are things that can help us to heal from the things that we've gone through. And I want to give this quick reminder to someone who may feel so overwhelmed with pain. Maybe you've gone through a recent breakup, or you've had a betrayal from a friend or someone that you care about, or someone in your family betrayed you. Whatever the situation is, I want to give this reminder of hope, and that is hold on, pain ends. Everyone type that. Hold on, pain ends. Type that in the chat. Hold on, pain ends. And this is some information about my husband and I's marriage club. It's a free marriage club that we have. If you're married or engaged, we would love to have you. And registration is pillowtalkmarriageclub.com. And we're actually just launching tomorrow. We're having our first Zoom meeting tomorrow night. We already have 140 people signed up. We'd love to have you join with us on that. And then also, if you would like therapy, or if you would like relationship coaching, I would be happy to help you in that area. And you see my phone number is there, my website is there. And that is all for this evening, except we open it up for questions. So any questions that you may have, I would even take comments. Questions, comments, please go for it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gibson, for that profound presentation. Like she said, we are now entering our question and answer segment, part of this session. I'll hand it over to Dawn Smith.
Good evening, everyone. I concur with Nurse Monroe. It was an engaging and informative session, so I know our audience must have some burning questions for Dr. Gibson, for Dr. What was the
Gibson, you got it right.
Yes, okay, Gibson. Don't want to get in no trouble.
No, my husband ain't. He ain't want no smoke.
Okay, so I know our audience is probably have burning questions for Dr. Gibson, so please type them in the chat. I am tuned into the chat and I'm waiting for your questions. In the meantime, I do have one that I want to ask you, Dr. Gibson, and that would be, I know you talk about on your last slide, acknowledging your hurt. And so one of the questions I want to ask you is, how do we break the stigma of seeking help from a therapist?
Ooh, listen, this is something that I've been trying to work on for years as a psychologist. And so I think first thing is education, right? And that's why forums like this is so important. It's so powerful, because in our society, we have this stigma, oh, if you go to see a therapist or a psychologist, that you crazy. And we have these negative stigmas associated. But I believe we're now moving to an era where people are becoming more knowledgeable about mental health issues, to realize that, no, it doesn't mean that I'm quote unquote crazy. It just means that I can use some extra support as I go through this area and this time of my life. And so I think education is definitely important, having seminars like this, informing people about what mental health issues is, breaking the stigma, because a lot of times it's really misconceptions, you know. People just have these false narratives about what mental health issues is and what it means when you go to a therapist. It's simply a conversation. And you could ask, if you were to sit down and talk with any of my clients, they would say, you know, it's just, I'm just talking. We're dialoguing and getting insight onto different areas of my life. So I'm hoping that forums like this can help to decrease that stigma.
And I agree, Dr. Gibson. We just have another question. I think someone would have joined us late and they just want to know what was the first C in the 4 C's of relationship, I think it was.
Okay, I'm going to give, that's a pop quiz. You know, I said I was going to give a pop quiz. So who's going to give the first C? I see a couple of people commenting. Communication. Oh, someone, who went and listed all? Man, you need to get an A+. Who's that? Of course, that's you, Miss Jennings, my world traveler. That's you giving all of them: communication, conflict resolution, compliments, and commitment. That's all 4 C's that are important for a successful relationship. Thank you so much.
All right, and then our next question would be, how do you deal with the fakers? This is from Denise Roll. She's asking, how do we deal with the fakers?
Oh, Shaw, listen, this is a really good one. And I think it depends on what stage you're at in your life. and how you want to handle it. So for me, I could speak for me. I don't know if fakers would even know that I know. I would realize where they at, and I treat them accordingly, meaning that I know my expectation of them. I can't expect them to be genuinely happy if something good happens for me. And so what I do is I decrease my expectation. You know, they won't celebrate with you and they won't be genuinely happy, and that's okay. They're on their own journey, and they're not to a place where they can realize that when someone else has a crown, it doesn't take away from mine. And so for me, I just kind of wear them a bit loose, and I decrease my expectations for them. And in some cases, it might get to a point where you have to cut them off because now it's become too toxic.
All right, so moving along, there's another question. When you have a person who is always talking, how do you cut it off nicely?
That's a good question. I think that sometimes you have to wait for that usually when people speak, even if they talk a lot, there's that tiny little break, and you jump in right away. And if there's not a break, you say, excuse me, I have something I would like to say, please. And then you able to communicate. And then also letting them know how that impacts you. You know, we talked about being of healthy communication. Healthy communication is also saying how you feel. You know, I feel unheard when you talk over me. You know, so being able to express that as well.
The other question is, what things can you do to move on after a big hurt? And also, this is a two-part question. So it's what things can you do to move on after a big hurt? And then the person is asking, how do you rebuild the trust?
Okay, that's a really good question as well. I think that goes back to one of the things I mentioned is therapy. And if both parties are willing to work on the relationship despite the hurt, then I believe that you can move forward. But it does take a lot of healing. It does take a lot of patience, and trust when lost. It's not easy to rebuild. It doesn't happen overnight. And so the other person would also have to be patient and realize that, okay, now that I betrayed their trust, there might be some extra things that I may have to commit to make them feel safe again. And one of those things might be going to therapy. One of those things might be communicating more or communicating better. And so it depends on the situation. I don't know much details about it, but I would definitely say therapy, talking to each other, and making a conscious decision. Is it something that I want to salvage, or is it something that I'm like, I can't move past this and I have to move on?
All right. So Mr. Jerome Johnson is asking, how do you deal with people that have past trauma and are easily triggered?
Wow, that's really good. So I would kind of say that we all have something. I know it's easy to say, oh, well, this person, they have so much trauma. There are some people that have, of course, much a heavier level of trauma. But I think we all have something that when someone does it, it's kind of a peeve point, or it's kind of a trigger for us. And so I think it's important that if I'm the person who is being triggered, for me to be able to be aware. Remember, we talked about at the very beginning, self-awareness. That's a big part of relationships. So I need to be aware that, okay, when you raise your voice to me, that takes me back. I know you're just talking passionately, but that takes me back to when I was a child and my father would yell at my mother and yell at me. And so that makes me feel really anxious. And I think some of that really comes, like I said, with therapy, because sometimes we don't see the relation. We don't see the relation between our reaction to being triggered and what happened to us in the past. And so I think if you're the one that's dealing with someone that's easily triggered or has a lot of trauma, one, be very patient with them. Two, don't take it all personally. Realize that it's not your fault. It's just that they've been through a lot of trauma in their life. Three, definitely therapy. Four, be as comforting and understanding and listen as much as possible.
All right. So these are some good questions.
Really good questions. Y'all on it.
They getting deep.
Yeah.
So there's another question in the chat. It says, how do you communicate with someone you love who's always on the defensive and always turn everything into an argument? Oh, that's a good one. That's
a really good one. Excuse me 1 second. I think that goes back to, we have to then turn inward and look at, how am I communicating my issues to them? I want to give you all a little tip. It's called a sandwich, right? If there's something that you have to communicate to someone that's very difficult, like it's kind of, for lack of a better word, a criticism of them, I recommend using a sandwich approach. So a sandwich is, we have the bread, we have the meat, and then we have the bread on the other side, okay? So the first slice of bread, what you do is you say something that you appreciate about them, something to compliment them. What that does is it helps us not to be on the defense, because you're saying something nice. We talked about the power of compliments, right? And then in the meat, then you give your feedback, whatever that feedback is that, you might say, I really appreciate you. I love you. I think that you are excellent and I want to know what I can do to help you to be more open to feedback. And then ending with something positive again. Because sometimes, like I said, some of the things that we deal with in relationships, it may not even be related to you. It could be that you're triggering them. The situation is triggering them, and maybe they feel insecure and they feel like they're being attacked. And so being able to sit down and quietly and patiently, and you're not also getting riled up, because they say it takes two to tango, right? If you're also getting riled up and defensive, then that also makes the situation worse, because they're now also going to get more defensive. And so once again, I know I'm going to sound like a Scotch record, but that's definitely something to work with in therapy, individually and also together as a unit.
Okay, and then there's a question in the chat. It says, what if only one person wants therapy, like in marriage, for example, and the other one refuses it? I think they want to ask, how do you work with that? How
So of course
why is that?
Of course, you can't do couples therapy with one person, but you can do therapy. And so I would recommend to that person to go for individual therapy. Focus on yourself. And sometimes we're so other focused. We're looking at all the things that our spouse is doing wrong or our significant other is doing wrong. But we need to take the time to look at ourselves. And so that's what therapy can do. How can I better handle this situation when I get upset? How can I better communicate to my spouse? So those are things that you can work on in therapy.
But I just want to piggyback on that question. Is that considered a red flag? Like if the other person doesn't want to?
I wouldn't necessarily say it's a red flag, because going back to the whole negative preconceptions about therapy, some people are scared to go for therapy. It's like they're scared, or they've been taught that, oh, you keep your family business in the family. So sometimes it's a matter of retraining them. But I've seen where when one person starts coming and they see the change in that person, then the person who didn't want to come starts joining. I've seen that happen, and I've seen it work out beautifully. So I would say you start with your own growth process, work through your own issues, and hopefully they may join along. We've even have people, we talked about the Pillow Talk Marriage Club. We have people that have joined without their spouse because their spouse don't want to be a part. That shouldn't stop you from growing.
Understandable. And then one last question. Recently on social media, blogs, and in general conversations, the term narcissist or narcissism has been used a lot. How does one identify if they are a narcissist, or give a little insight into what would you describe as a narcissist behavior as it relates to relationships? So how can one look at someone and say, hey, you are a narcissist or you're not a narcissist? Like, how do they know? You
may not like my answer, but
if it's the truth,
it takes a lot of training to know that. And so I know we use the word very loosely. You might have a selfish person. That doesn't mean that they necessarily have a narcissistic personality disorder. We have a ton of criteria that we, as psychologists, that we look through to see if they meet the criteria. As a layperson, you may say, well, this person seems like they have those things, but you're not 100% sure. So going beyond labels, right? The main thing you need to look at is, are there red flags? And if there are red flags, then you know what to do. So beyond the label, the more important thing is the behavior, right? So you need to know how to deal with those behaviors.
Okay. So I know I said it was the last, but
Keep
I'll
on
just
coming,
ask
keep on coming.
So you spoke on self-awareness, and how the way you view yourself impacts relationships. What advice would you give when communicating your needs to a person that doesn't see themselves clearly or truthfully?
Wow. I mean, how long did it take y'all to come up with these questions? Y'all are good. Y'all are good. So it sounds like from the question, you're talking to someone who has a poor view of self. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, yes.
Okay.
Someone who doesn't know who they are.
Mhm.
How do you communicate your needs to that person? Because they're already struggling with their identity. So now it's
This is also going to sound like a hard answer because I would answer that based on where they are. If you're dating, my response to that would be take a break from dating. It ain't the time to date right now. Focus on learning more about yourself, healing from stuff, and focus on you more because you're in a fractured state where it's hard for you to even help someone else. If you can't fulfill your own needs, how can you help to fulfill someone else's right now? And so I would say if you're dating, focus on that. Now, if you're married, you're already in it, right? And so I would definitely say, once again, trying to see if you could get that person to do individual and or couples therapy, but also giving them a little grace and trying to give them a lot of positive compliments, positive support, letting them know, I'm here for you. I would like to support you and let you know that I appreciate you. There are some things that you may need and sometimes, honestly, you have to realize the person's capacity. Because just because you need that from that person, it doesn't mean that they have the capacity. And so this is what happens in relationships a lot of times is, I need you to be super affectionate to me. I need you to be lovey-dovey with me. And you keep telling them that, but you don't realize their capacity level. They ain't there yet. They're not there, and you're frustrating yourself, and they're getting frustrated because they're not there yet. So you have to realize people's capacity.
Okay, so Dr. Gibson, would you say to stay in that relationship, or like you said, if you're married, that's a little, but
Yeah.
if you're just dating them, would you say, pursue that relationship, or just step back and
y'all ain't gonna get on this thing and tell people, right? Dr. Gibson say to break up with you. No, y'all trying to get me in trouble. What I would say is that definitely is a point to reflect on, to realize if I'm not married, I'm not all in, right? We're dating, we're still getting to know each other better. Might need some time to kind of take a step back and focus on ourselves. Or if we want to do this together, then you got to be willing to be super duper supportive and understanding as helping this person work through that.
all right. Understand. All right. So you would have touched a bit on self-care. Can you give us some insight on how to determine or differentiate when self-care or setting boundaries become selfish?
Oh, that's a good one. One, I think that there's a thin line, right? And sometimes we've become a society where we can sometimes be very us focused, or we say stuff like us for no more. We don't want to take care of anyone else. I think that it's important that we are still humanitarian. It's important that we still are our brother's keeper. And so me saying no and setting boundaries and taking engagement in self-care, it does not mean that now I've cut off helping everybody on their own. I ain't check for nobody. No. That's an extreme level. And I think that what helps me is when I'm able to take a step back and engage in self-care, I'm a better mother. I'm a better wife. I'm a better daughter. I can help people better. I can speak better because I've engaged in that self-care. And so it's not about me being selfish. It's about me taking care of myself and using that that care to also take care of someone else or help someone else.
Yes, I agree. When you take care of yourself, you'll be better. You'll function better.
Exactly. It's kind of like when you go on the airplane and they're like, if you need to help someone else in case of emergency, put on your mask first and then put on their mask. You got to put that mask on, but that don't mean leave their mask off. You still put their mask on.
Yeah. So there's another question in the chat. Mr. Leonardo Allen is asking, can you define dating? Because in our culture, and I understand where he's coming from with this, in our culture, dating is not what we think dating is. So can you define dating?
That's my pastor, y'all. Shout out to my pastor being so supportive and being here tonight. That's a good question. Now, for me, I'm gonna define, this is the Gibson 101 definition. Now, I'm very aware that I feel like I'm old. I'm almost 40, and I feel like when I think about how people date now, it's very different from how I dated even a few years ago, right? What does dating mean? For me, I made a conscious decision whether or not this person, because I dated with purpose. So when I say I dated with purpose, I wasn't just going on casual dates with someone who I don't even like, or someone who I didn't see as potential for being a good spouse. If I didn't see you as potential, then we weren't dating. We could be cool, we could be friends, but we weren't dating. And so for me, it was more like a courtship in preparation. Now, I understand that we're in a different world now. We're 2024, all types of, you swipe left or right or whatever, it's just different. It's different. But for me, that's how I would define dating.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Gibson. I think that is all the questions. Let me just be sure. Don't want to overlook anyone, but I think that is it. So I'm turning it over now to Nurse Monroe.
All right, Dr. Gibson, that was such a wonderful presentation. Are we still having the pop quiz?
Yes. Oh, see, I love you, Nurse Monroe. You listen. Keep these people accountable. All right.
Yes.
Pop quiz. Type in the chat one way that you can start the healing process. One thing that's important to do for healing. Let me see if y'all were listening. Forgiveness, boy, y'all on it. Acknowledge your hurt, therapy, y'all. Oh my goodness, y'all. Go to the head of the class. Let it go. Excellent, excellent. Y'all are listening. Great job. One more question on the pop quiz. Laugh. Good job. One more question. I can't say list the 4 C's because someone already did that, Miss Jennings. All right. What are some red flags in a relationship? Wow, Miss Jennings already gave all the points of how to heal. She is on it. Lying, dishonesty, takers. No one likes them. They don't want, she got all. Listen, if y'all want to know the answer, look at Miss Jennings' post. She is on top of things. Good. Y'all are really good. I love it. So they were listening, Nurse Monroe. They were listening.
Yes.
Good job. Someone get an A.
Definitely, Miss Jennings. A++.
I know, right?
Okay, so on behalf of Mrs. Rogers, our Vice President, our Doc Talk Committee, and our entire team here at Bahama Health, we would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to you, Dr. Gibson, for taking time out of your busy schedule and providing us with such an informative and enriching presentation. I know that the information disseminated here will impact someone in this group tonight in some way. And we hope that these precious nuggets that you supplied us with will be applied in their daily interactions and relationships. I know for me, what would have stood out is when you spoke about taking the sandwich approach. I'll definitely be implementing that in how I communicate and interact with a few persons.